Good evening, YouTube. This is Kaylin Strain coming at you with my regular Sunday night dinner. And this one will be the last one for this month, since, as I have already previously announced, that I will be out of town starting next Sunday. We will leave earlier in the day, not super early because it doesn't take all that long to get there. Plus, we can't check into the cabins until after 3 p.m. Central Time, although we might get lucky and be able to get in sooner, but that's not always the case. So I obviously will not be streaming because internet service out there is iffy at best, and I'm not going to be taking any rations with me because this is a family trip and I'm focusing purely on that. So here is the echo of the tactical food pack. They call it tactical food bag. And this one is the beef spaghetti bolognese. And because this has no hot drink option, as I said last time, I will open up my other pour over coffee. And this one is a Costa Rican coffee. And when you buy these, the heater element is packaged separately. It doesn't come in the ration bag. As you can see, like the last one, there's a hole. Because out in the field, if you had a wet pack component that you needed to heat up, then you would simply use this as a flameless ration heater. So this has a tear notch across the top, which doesn't always work because the hang hole, that's where it breaks. So you don't get a complete tear, but it did rip all the way across for the most part. But it has a zip seal, so if you choose to use this as a flameless ration heater, you would zip it up after you put the element in, whatever you're going to heat up, and the water, and then the steam will vent out that hole. So here is entree, which is in a gusseted pouch. This has another one of those core shakes, and this one says fresh green. This one has a very tight vacuum seal on it. Then the other drink mix is a wild cherry, so I'm looking forward to trying that. And you have the rye bread, which is the exact same as in the previous tactical food bag. Wet wipe. And the same black spoon as before. I'm going to drop the FRH element back into this bag because, like the last one, I'm going to save this bag and I will fold it up because it is so big, and I will put it with my other ration heaters. And the last one is some original flavor beef jerky. This one calls for 300 mils of water, or maybe about 10 ounces. And 20-30 best by date on this. That tore open much cleaner. Because I am keeping the ration bag, I just grabbed a Walgreens bag for my kitchen. So here is a oxygen absorber. Got little meatballs inside there, or chunks of beef. I'm not sure if it's ground beef yet or not. And because this spoon is just barely, I think you can see it better this way, just barely sticks up above the top of the bag, I'm going to use this one, which sticks up a lot higher above the top of the bag. So my kettle is coming up to a boil. So I'll go ahead and get the water in here first. And then I will set up the pour over coffee. And I'm going to try something different with it this time, in a different cup. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of powder in this. So it looks pretty soupy right now, but just gave it a little bit of a shake. Don't have to do as much to this one. So I'm going to put this one back there. And this is what it looks like. And as usual, I like my coffee white, sweet and blonde. Because this one is narrower at the top, I'm thinking that it should stay better. Although this one did not open as it should. There we go. Well, it didn't quite open as it should, but it ripped. So I'm not going to be able to demonstrate this properly. But that is what you would do. So I'm going to try something a little different. I'm hooking these onto here. So hopefully that should allow me to go ahead and pour the water in. And we'll see how that goes. You can still see that the water is going through. And I can lift that up to see the level. Although it's harder to see with being a little darker in there since it's not a white interior cup. I did dribble over the side, but oh well. The paper towel will take care of that. You just have to take it slower when you gotta do it this way. Oh, it just collapsed. Oh well. I will have to take this into the kitchen to clean this up. So, you can chat with each other while I do that. Okay, I'm back. I'm wiping up the last of. So my tray's going to be slightly discolored, but it's been discolored from other things in the past. Now, what this, for those that are interested, many years ago, I saw this. Well, maybe not many years ago, but quite a few years ago. Maybe about 2017 or something like that. Maybe 2016, I don't know. But this is a UST insulated cup. As you can see by the shape of it, it's fatter on the bottom. So the majority of the vacuum sealed, so it's like a vacuum seal container, and it's fatter at the bottom, so it's supposed to retain more heat. So now I am going to do the core shake. Now the last time I did this, the mix was very, very clumpy. And it is the case with this. Although it doesn't, just actually does seem to be a little bit more loose. What I'm actually doing is kneading the mixture inside before I put the water and trying to break up some of the clumps. And I will do the same thing as I did last time. I will put some water in the bag to get it started. And then I will add some more later. I just add a little bit more water to this. So sorry for not even looking at the chat, but I wanted to get that coffee mess cleaned up. I'm eventually going to get one of those pour-over strainers that you can put on top of a cup that is reusable, that you can either put a cone filter in, like a number 2, which is a smaller of the 2 cone filters. Number 4 is a larger. Or I may buy one where you don't even need to add that. I've been wanting to get one of those anyway. I think I actually have one that's a 2-pack on my Amazon shopping list, or one of my lists. This one is also designed to mix in the bag, but because it's just the standard drink mix, I can get away with doing it in my drinking jar. I like to stick it in like that, try to, if there's any like very fine powder that might escape, more of it is captured in there. It's a very slight pinkish or dark pinkish. And that's a pretty fuchsia type pink, or a hot pink. It still has some of that sugar at the bottom. I'm going to give my pasta another shake. Then I'm going to do some, let's see, let's check, see what it looks like. It looks a bit soupy, but that's okay. Now this bread does not have as tight of a vacuum. No, I don't think this glows in the dark. I'm gonna just open that with the scissors. The other bread that I had last time had a very tight vacuum seal. And this appears to be like 3 pieces. Because I know it's a lot thicker. The other one had 2. I'm actually having to put it against myself to pry it apart. But there we go. So that is the middle piece, and these are the 2 end pieces. Now I'm going to open up the beef jerky. Very good smell coming off of that jerky. And I have just a plastic bag off to my left to collect the trash, since I'm keeping the ration bag with the heater element inside. Now I'm going to go through the chatsus here. Let's see, Enfos is here, CR Spicy Tuna Rolls is here. Burger Butt, most likely Dave. Those are all I see here so far. Again, I apologize for not really getting into the chat because my coffee bag came apart on me. I can still feel a lot of the powder inside of the bottom of this core shake. So I think what I'm going to have to do is actually stir it in the bag. It actually looks pretty thick. I might still add some more water because I still have some more in this bottle. But it calls for less than a cup of water, 200 mils, and about 248 or something like that equals to 8 ounces. So this is like 6 ounces. So that looks quite thick. So I'm actually going to I'll put a little bit more water in there. Yeah, there's still quite a bit in there. Swirling it around in the bottom. And that pretty much cleans it out for the most part. So it looks like one of those shakes that you might get in a health food place. I'm going to give my other drink another mix because it needs it. I'm going to close up this bottle. This is my 750 ml insulated bottle. I always keep that and my Camel one in the fridge. Now this is still a little bit saucy, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and pour it out. Now the pasta is short, so it'll be easy to eat. It doesn't look like your typical tomato sauce because it's almost a brownish. As just a sauce by itself. I'm going to go ahead and give a taste of that. That doesn't have a whole lot of flavor to it. I think that is a piece of onion there. Yeah, that was a piece of onion. There's some garlic flavor. Yeah, pasta is pretty soft, fully rehydrated. And being small pasta, so there is some of the meat covered by some of the pasta. Now the meat pieces completely fell apart, so it is like ground beef. But I got something that might jazz this up a bit. Yeah, a little parm from the kitchen. Parmesan cheese will take up some of that sauce. It helps, but it could probably use something that some people would probably consider essential. Although I'm not going to go do it, I'm not going to take the time to go get it, but some might want a little pepper, maybe some red pepper. That was a bit of tomato in there. I'm going to take a bite of this original flavor beef jerky. Kind of smells like a smoked, almost a barbecue type smell. And it's got that flavor, very soft. You get a good sized amount of this. And this is the exact same bread as last time, except there's 3 pieces. Even though it's dense, it's very easy to chew, which is nice. And I like the flavor. Although with an Italian style entree, most people would want a different type of bread rather than a rye. Let's give this a try. I might have to stir it again because it looks like it might be starting to separate. There is a bit of sweetness, but you can definitely get the flavor of the various greens that were used. There's Melissa in the house. So I will get the pouch back out. It is simply called fresh green, but the ingredients: this is apple, casein powder, which is a milk derivative. See, might not be able to read that. Spinach, this is lemon puree. I don't know what MCT is. Peppermint, citric acid, and apple essence, which is probably like a concentrated apple flavoring. And that's all of the ingredients in that core shake. So the apple gives it the sweetness. The lemon and the citric acid give it the tartness. And then the spinach and the peppermint give it the other greens flavoring. It's actually not too bad. But you still have that same texture, like part of it is pulp that has not been completely dissolved. But you do get all of the essential nutrients that it that the spinach would provide. Yeah, some of these types of things are. But you just have to open your mind to things like that. I'm going to give this one a try. It's a cherry flavor, but it's definitely artificial. There may be some natural cherry in there. It gets the color from beetroot. So the top is the English ingredients. It has the electrolytes in it. It has the different sugars in it. But no real cherry in it at all. Which is a bit of a bummer considering that the core shake has natural ingredients in it. There is Germs Marie in the house. Thanks for dropping in. First time seeing you here. So this is tactical food bag in the tactical food pack line. These come out of Estonia. This is the Echo. And these have names rather than menu numbers. So these are like the words that would be used to represent a letter when spelling out something. Say like Lima Echo Foxtrot or something like that. That is a type of military lingo, and sometimes other agencies might do that if they need to spell something. They may use those representative words instead of just saying like LEF, because sometimes communication may not be all that great and might be misinterpreting something. So I guess by using these representative words, yeah, it's a phonetic, but I like to call them representative words because sometimes in different places they may use different words. But this entree had a best by date of 2030. Well, that's until I opened it. But this whole ration had a best by date of 25 because of the beef jerky and the bread not having as long a shelf life as the freeze-dried entree. This pasta bolognese, it's got decent flavor. I added some parm from my kitchen. And the beef is ground beef and it completely fell apart instead of remaining in the bigger clumps that it was before I put the water in. But there is actual garlic and onion in here. And occasionally I might get a piece of tomato. But the pasta is very short, so that makes it easy to eat, especially if you're using a spoon. Like this one that came in the bag. This is my titanium spork that I got from foreignmre.com when they were still had these on their site. Now they don't have anything on the site, but because it has not been taken down, I'm hoping that someday in the future they will be getting back into the ration business, because I really enjoyed buying rations from them. But you will still see Art doing the occasional review on the Foreign MRE YouTube channel. And sometimes Nina will get in there and have a little fun herself. This rye bread, I like it. I like rye bread. Yeah, they may be keeping the site in order to keep the domain. That would be my guess. Yeah, this insulated cup that I got several years ago from Walmart is actually keeping the heat in the coffee. Otherwise, it would be cold by now. The coffee did not come from the ration because there's no hot drink option in these. But it came from my brew kit in my camping food bag. But it's a pour over coffee, but the pour over bag split. So that created a bit of a mess. So for those that will be watching the replay from the beginning, there's a bit of time where you don't hear me saying anything because I'm in the kitchen cleaning up the mess. But I salvaged most of the coffee, so. And then the coffee grounds actually went into my compost bucket. Or at least as much of them as I could get out of that bag before tossing it in the trash. So I save all my spent coffee grounds. They go into a little bucket underneath my sink. That's my small compost bucket. And then when that gets full of spent coffee grounds, fruit and veggie scrap, things of that nature, then I dump that out into the compost tub on the deck. Yeah, I have used a few of those pour over coffee bags before. I only had 4 of them. So I used one in camp during a camping trip. And then the other 3 I kept here at home. And so I used the final one that I had tonight. I have a coffee bag, which is like a tea bag that's stays sealed. You do not open that up. And I've had the Folgers Coffee Singles is what is a more well-known brand, but this other one that I have, I've used one of those before in one of my streams, and I still have one of those two left. But those are great for camping if you want to have actual real coffee, not instant coffee, but you don't want to have the hassle of boiling, trying to brew it over a fire or on a stove. If it's just one person drinking it, then simply steeping it like a tea bag, that is a lot less messy than the pour overs. But I like the concept of the pour over. It's just sometimes the bags just don't hold up. They may be hard to open. And in the case of the one that I had tonight, it just started to split. I'm going back for more of this beef jerky because it's good. Now this thing that you see right there is actually part of my foam mount. I haven't been able to find a position where I could get it out of the picture completely. There is James Ortiz in the house. Thanks for dropping in. This is the Estonian Tactical Food Bag Echo Edition. The beef spaghetti bolognese. This one is kind of lacking in flavor. It could use a little more herb flavor, a little more tomato flavor, a little more spice. I did add some Parmesan cheese from my kitchen though. Again, with these bags, these rations, no kind of spread or anything to put on the bread. I suppose in theory, if you wanted to, you could dunk the bread in the sauce, just like I did with that beef stew. But the rye flavor is so strong that it overpowers the flavor that's in this sauce. And this is that greens, core shake, spinach, and some peppermint, along with some apple for the fruitiness and some lemon for the tart. But it tends to separate. Now, if someone mixed this in a blender, that might work, but then again, it still may separate. So I'm just I'm just going to keep this spoon in there just to keep stirring it. When it's all mixed up, that's what it looks like, but it'll tend to separate. But I'm still enjoying this meal. Again, for those that came late, this bag is designed to be used as a flameless ration heater. When I bought these two tactical food packs from MRE Mountain, these were loose in the box. So you buy one of these, you get a heater element packed separately. It's not put into the ration bag by the company that makes these in Estonia. But basically, like some of the other civilian ration heaters, you know, gusseted bottom so this could stand up. And if you needed to, you could use this bag to purify probably 3 liters of water. But you would open this up, drop it in the bottom. You would add the requisite amount of water, and then whatever you're going to heat up, zip it up, and then the steam would come out this hole. If you've ever seen videos on the O meals, let's see, Iridium 242 has done those, and then some others have done those, but it's basically the same thing, but on a smaller size. You put the element in the bottom of the bag, you put your item you're going to heat up, whether it's a retort pouch or a hot beverage bag with stuff for coffee or tea or whatever. You put the water in that it calls for, and then you zip it up, and then the steam comes out the hole. Now, I have no idea what true Bolognese pasta would be like. I don't know if it would have more tomato flavor, if it would have more herb flavor, or more tomato flavor, but a few tiny pieces of tomato is all I found so far. But this beef jerky is definitely the star of this one. I like that it's soft, it's easy to chew, it's not rock hard like the beef jerky has been in Canadian rations. But the last beef jerky that CT got in a Canadian ration is a lot softer. That was one of their new rations called an LMP or a light meal pack. It's basically a drink, maybe just some foods that you don't have to do anything with, other just open it and eat it. It'll be like a single meal version of the U.S. First Strike ration. Now, for those that don't know, CR is up there in Canada. Unless someone moved him last night and forgot to tell him. Next Sunday, as I said at the beginning, I will not be here because I will be at Lake Icaria. I put up a community tab post about it. I just screenshotted a site that has a picture of the lake, and I posted that up. So we are leaving here next Sunday. So I have the majority of my stuff packed. Now, I will be doing some laundry so I can get the rest of the clothes clean that I want to pack or that I want to wear. No, July 30 to August 4. But I prepare in case for some odd reason we might have to spend an extra night away from home. I still want to think like a prepper. I'm going to try something with these tiny bits of the beef jerky. I'm going to throw them in here just for giggles. See if it's worth doing that or not. Just to have a little bit more real beef in there. Yeah, that's what we are doing. The lake has memorial benches around it, and if you pay the county parks department a certain amount of money, I don't know what that is because they may change their rates. It's basically just to maintain those benches. You can have a loved one's name and maybe some kind of short inscription put on it. And so a few years after my dad died, my mom had that done. She paid Adams County, which is a county that Lake Icaria is in. She paid the county parks department a certain amount of money to have my late dad's name put on one of those benches. And the reason why she did that was my dad used to go there a lot when he was a kid before the lake was even created. So it is a man-made lake. So last year they added even more benches so that more people could do that to honor a loved one. And so there is another one near the cabins that we have reserved. In fact, we reserved this week, not last year, but the year before. And then last year we reserved for 2024. And so next year we will spend a full week, so 6 nights instead of 5 nights. Because that was the way my sister who made the reservation was able to get close to the same time period next year. So we go fishing. We all take our fishing gear. That fish scale that I bought off Amazon several months ago is in my rod bag with my 2-piece takedown rod. Plus a small amount of tackle and my rod holder. And I've also added a fillet knife, which I bought at the farmer's market last year. There's an Iowa company that makes knives that are towards the high end, but not all that expensive. And so I bought the last fillet knife they had. And it comes with a leather sheath. So I have that in my rod bag as well. And instead of sleeping bags, for one thing, it's just too dang hot for that. We'll just be laying on top of them. We just use regular bed sheets. But last year they changed up the bunks so that the bottom bunk is actually a double size with thicker, better quality mattresses. And then the top bunk is a single, and they did away with the fold-out couch, the hide-a-bed, which is what we used to call them back in the day. Those were so unwieldy. They were not very comfortable to lay on, not very comfortable to sit on when the mattress was collapsed inside the couch frame. So they replaced those with love seats that are actually more comfortable to sit on. They're the same color scheme. But doing away with those, I think, was definitely a good idea. And the reason why we get cabins is my mom has mobility issues, and my oldest sister uses a CPAP, so we have to have power. And so one of the cabins is wheelchair accessible, and then the one next to it is not. So we split our group into two. So half of us will use one of the cabins to sleep in, half of us use the other, and then the one that is the accessible one, we use that kitchenette as our working kitchen. And then the other kitchenette is merely backup storage. And we take some food with us. We can't take all of the food that we would want because we would have less room for gear. Or we would have to have more vehicles than we may have available. Yeah, the cabins are definitely more comfortable, especially for those that actually have to have something that to some would be a luxury as far as camping goes. But because we go through the town of Corning, which is county seat of Adams County, once we get settled into the cabins and we get stuff put away, and depending on what we plan out for meals, we may go back into town to do some more shopping at a grocery store, or we may delay that a couple of days. It all depends on the meal plan, well, sort of meal plan. I know some of the things that we're doing because, beef hot dogs. I don't eat pork, and, they do accommodate my my religious dietary guidelines that I follow. But we sometimes do corn in a cooler. And that's a very interesting process. Basically, we take, sweet corn that's been shucked. You put it in a cooler, and it has to be a hard side cooler. And then you simply boil water on the stove, and you just pour that in there so it covers the corn, and then you just close that cooler and then just let that sit for a few hours. And that frees up the stove or the fire pit for cooking other foods. But we have my one sister's Blackstone, and then a Coleman 2-burner propane stove. So we take that, and then we have the fire pit, so we can cook over the fire, plus we do s'mores. And I have the halal marshmallows for that. Yeah, my one sister who owns the Blackstone had a cheaper version. The year before last, that thing just crapped out. It just would not light worth anything. You know, made sure that the gas flow was good. You know, the valves or, whatever you connect the hose from the propane tank to, or the tube that goes from that propane intake into the burner area. That thing just was not working. Plus, the grease catches just a tiny cup that was probably a quarter of the size of this. And if you had a lot of grease, you had to be emptying that thing out frequently. Whereas the one for the Blackstone, it holds about as much as this thing does. So it's a lot easier, it's reliable, and definitely worth the investment. And she's glad she got it because during power outages, she and my other sister, who lives with her, and then my brother is staying with them, they have that to cook on, and they can do that outside or in the garage if the weather's crappy. With the garage door open, obviously. They can cook out there. Or sometimes they just want to do something like that and not fire up the stove in the kitchen, and just so that they don't have to heat up the house too much. See, that piezo is igniter is one thing that my sister's old Blackstone knockoff did not have. Or at least if it did have it, it was not very good. So all we had was the 2-burner propane stove. The cabins do have microwaves, but that doesn't always work for all things. But, and we didn't want to have a fire for every meal, using a fire pit, because then we'd be going through a whole lot of firewood. Of course, for some meals, we would just have sandwiches, with some different lunch meats and cheeses. There is LC in the house. Thanks for dropping in. It's beef spaghetti bolognese. A bit lacking in the flavor department, but I'm still enjoying it. Could use a little bit more meat, but maybe that's why they again added the beef jerky. Of course, the beef stew in the last one had a lot more meat in it, but it's nice to have that beef jerky in there as well. Now this greens core shake, and like the last one, it separates It's very hard to mix. It's pulpy. It's got the texture of half dissolved powder. But the flavor's nice. I like the flavor. I kind of like the flavor of it better than the other one because the other one just did not have much flavor at all. And the rye bread, it would have been nice to have a different kind of bread with this spaghetti bolognese. Yes, you are. You are always hungry. And I apologize for my shakiness. This foam mount is a little unstable itself, and this table is actually a folding camp table, which was upsized from a small wood TV tray, which I still have, but I used to use it. My legit dining table is actually my microwave table. But the reason why I got this table here was if I needed to go somewhere and a table of this size was needed, I can fold it up. It's from the company called Camprite. It's KAMP-RITE. But that's what this table is, so I mean it works for me. So I just go with it. I added Parmesan cheese to this. And I also added a few of the tiny bits of the beef jerky, just for a tiny bit more beef flavor. And this drink here is wild cherry, but there is no cherry anything. The color comes from beets. And then, the flavoring is all artificial. It's the energy drink type of thing, the sports drink type of thing. So it's definitely artificial cherry flavor. Would have been nice to have real cherry juice in there, even if it's just a little bit. Whereas this core shake, it's got real apple, it's got spinach, some lemon concentrate, and some peppermint. And of course it's got all the other nutrients in there that they want to put in. Yeah, it says wild, the pouch said wild cherry, but there's no cherry anything in there. Now the cherry drinks I've had before were actually darker in color, not this fuchsia, this hot pink. The cherry flavored drink mix that Minotaur made, that was a lot closer to what I would think cherry juice would be like. Again, these rations don't have any hot drink options as far as what I've seen. I got both of these tactical food packs from Emery Mountain. They had another one, but it is mashed potatoes with bacon, and because that's pork bacon, I don't eat that. So I attempted my last pour over coffee, but the coffee bag split. So I had a mess to clean up at the beginning. But I salvaged most of it. And probably 75% of the coffee grounds did make it into my compost bucket. Before I added the water to this pasta, I saw the beef chunks and ooh, these are either meatballs or just larger pieces of beef, but it's just ground beef that literally fell apart when I added the water in, because as I was mixing it, I did not see those big chunks anymore. There are bits of onion and garlic in here, and a few tiny bits of tomato. I do like that they made the pasta short so it'd be easy to eat with a spoon. I heard about that rain on the news down here. Now that is absolute insanity. It sounds like what is happening in northern India right now. Now they have had monsoons on steroids there, or they get several months of rain all in one shot. And the heat is supposed to be coming here. So it would be somewhere 40 centigrade or Celsius down here. Probably for almost every day. I'm guessing for the next 2 weeks, based on the pattern that I'm starting to see as the days get closer to the time I leave for our family trip. Because the weather that I use on the phone that I'm streaming on, I can see 10 days ahead. Well, maybe upper 30s Celsius. Yeah, but there are a couple of days here where we could crack 100 Fahrenheit or 40 Celsius. It's coming up this week. And so people who are traveling and would not be home to look after their yards or gardens, if they don't have a way to automatically water, then some things may not make it. So, because I don't have that option here, The only way I could do that would be is if I had a whole bunch of those little water globes that you stick into the soil and then you fill it up with water and then you put it upside down, to stick it in. And it's supposed to trickle out the water over time. I got a lot of pots on my deck. Although I have not resumed watering the 5-gallon bucket that I had planted the moringa seeds in, is that one storm left probably a couple inches of standing water in that, and that drowned that thing. So I don't know if it's going to recover or not. I'm just letting that compost completely dry out to see if it will recover. Of course, the other mistake I made was I planted the seeds too close to the outside of the pot of the bucket instead of more towards the center. Wow, it had to be one nasty storm if it nearly took it off your property completely. Depending on how that wind was, you could have had what we started calling down here a derecho. Before 2020, we never heard that term for a hurricane force straight line wind. That happens in areas of the U.S. where there's no possibility of a hurricane sustaining itself. So that first storm like that hit us back in August of 2020, that knocked out power to pretty much the entire state of Iowa. The winds were above hurricane force, for a Category 1 hurricane. So we had winds that strong in some places, had it almost equivalent to a Category 2 hurricane. So I only lost power for like 3 days. So after that, I decided that I needed to up my backup power again. So that's when I got two different times, I got mini portable power stations. And then I have a couple of different solar panels, but because I don't get direct sun here, it's a trickle charge at best. So I would have, if I needed to charge them in the middle of the day, I would have to take it down to the park or down to the parking lot to get sun on it, and then I would just have to sit there so no one would steal it. So if I do use them, I just plug them into a wall outlet and recharge them that way. course, these are small units. I wouldn't be able to run my fridge off of it, but I could charge lights, I could charge a phone or my hotspot. I could run one of my USB fans off of it. So that's pretty much why I got those, just so that I could have a little bit of light but I have battery powered lights, which are not as bright or versatile as my USB rechargeable lights, but I do have those options. And what I would do in a longer power outage, instead of running all of those at once, I would use a few at a time, and then when those die, if I could plug them into a power station to recharge, or just conserve that power for a phone or a radio that I could plug in, charge through USB. I could, or through, the electrical outlet, because they can't accept wall plugs. Then I would just cycle through all of my rechargeable lights until either the power came back on, and then I would just start recharging them all, or I would switch Yeah, I thought about getting solar lights, but again, I don't know how well they would work putting them out on my deck. I might have to get a couple of the cheap ones that Dollar Tree sells, to experiment with those. That's out of focus. Got to fix that. But I may get those and experiment with them to see how well they would work. Yeah, I may do that after I come back from my trip. I do have Dollar Trees here in Des Moines. I just don't go there very often. But I definitely do want to check them out. See the different kinds that are available here. And to see how well they would take the charge from the little bit of light I do get, and then how long they would stay lit after I bring them in the dark. G'day, Sharon. Thanks for dropping in. Morning time in Australia. This is beef spaghetti bolognese, or what's left of it. There's the way I got my phone angled really doesn't show the whole width of my tray, at least this way. So I brought out the Tupperware tray for this one. This one accommodates larger portions than the green one. But it only has these two sections here on the side plus the utensil section here. Or I could put food in there if I wanted, if it wasn't a large amount. But this one kind of lacked the flavor. So I added some of my own Parmesan cheese to it. And then a few of the tiny bits of this original flavor beef jerky, which is very good. I do like the beef. Sorry about that brief disconnect. I was just saying that I really like the beef jerky. This is the same rye bread as in the other tactical food bag that I had, the one that was labeled Foxtrot. But this one had 3 pieces instead of 2. I can't figure out why they would do that unless they had a small piece that they just wanted to get rid of, so they just toss it in with this one. But it's got a little bit of sheen. This is the side that was outside of, it was on the outside touching the plastic. Same with this one. So it's got that bit of sheen. And then this is what it looks like inside. But there's a third piece that was in between these two. I've already eaten that piece. But even though this is dense rye bread, it's still enjoyable. There are just no condiments or anything to put on it. So I don't know if the person who would get this ration out in the field would just eat it plain or dump it in their entree. Yeah, I dipped it, one of the pieces, in the sauce, but because the rye flavor is so strong, it just overpowered the very lightly flavored sauce that this spaghetti is in. And the ground beef literally just fell apart into really tiny, tiny particles. I had even thrown some of the smallest bits of the beef jerky in there, just for a little extra beef flavor. But this is good jerky. I do like what they did with the jerky. This wild cherry, completely fake flavor, fake color. It's beet, the beet juice. They call it beetroot, but if you know what beets, the red beets will look like, That is where they get the color from for this. No cherry flavor. It's all fake. But it's a sports drink. It'll do the job. And then this core shake, it separates. So I'm constantly mixing it, and you can see the stuff sticks to the side of the glass. Yeah. Sue of Eats, Treats, and MREs has gotten the 24-hour tactical food packs from the company she is able to buy them from. And I believe some of those might be wet packs or include some retort pouches instead of just all being the freeze-dried. But this is the green, so it has spinach and peppermint are the two green things that are in here. There's apple for the pulp and the sweetness. And then there's lemon extract and citric acid, and of course ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C. That gives the tartness. But I do like the flavor that the spinach and the peppermint give to it. I just don't like the fact that it is constantly separating. You have to stir it every time you want to take a drink of it. Or you're just going to end up with all the pulp at the bottom of the glass. So this one has more flavor than the other one did. Again, no hot drink options, so I busted out my last pour over coffee, but that bag split. So you watch towards the beginning when I have to basically stop talking and clean up the mess because the bag split and I was losing some of the coffee onto the tray. And I put my little plastic strainer thing in there to hold the coffee bag. And that's how I was able to salvage most of it. And then I ended up dumping most of the coffee grounds right into my compost bucket that I keep under the sink. And this is an insulated cup that kind of looks like an oversized pear without the top. It's from Ozark Trail, which is a brand that Walmart has for their outdoor gear. And I've had this for several years. And it does keep things warmer for a little bit longer. Of course, without a lid, it doesn't retain the heat as well as a travel mug would. I saw that picture of that dog dressed up like that. I'm assuming that was intended for CT to see, since his logo is a unicorn. I pretty much polished that off. There's my crusher in the house. Things are dropping in. This is the Echo Tactical Food Pack. This beef spaghetti bolognese, but not very much beef. But 3 pieces of this rye bread instead of 2 like last time. This is original flavor beef jerky, and it's really good. I like it. This seriously lacks flavor. I even threw some Parmesan cheese from my kitchen in there. But there's a tiny bit of garlic and onion, actual pieces. Very few pieces of real tomato. And the beef was ground beef that literally fell apart when I put the hot water in it. So there was just not a whole lot of flavor in this. And then this core shake, it's got spinach and peppermint in it, so that's why it's green colored. It actually tastes better, has more flavor than the previous core shake. But the texture is all the same. It's pulpy. You got that sensation of half dissolved powder. And the wild cherry drink. Definitely not real cherry. It's beet colored, because the beet is the source of the color. But the rye bread is good. Just nothing to put on it. Oh, sweet Mike. That would be so awesome to check those out. I am so glad that they didn't get rated. And I'm glad that these two didn't get rated since they were shipped from another country. They're made in Estonia, but Emery Mountain had them imported from a different country. I'm not going to say that country, just because I don't want to get anyone into any more trouble than they might already be in. But I got one of those customs notices in the box, but nothing was taken because both of these bags had the original factory seal. Nothing was removed. And the box itself was not altered in any way. So it can be a real crapshoot when you're ordering something from another country. Whereas the two different times I tried to order the same French RCIR menu, both of those got rated. I still want to try that kebab meatballs RCIR with everything in it, and not just end up with a box full of bars and drink mixes. Yeah, I was not happy with that. But that seller did not respond to my messages when I sent them the pictures. Of what the box looked like and the contents that were left. Nothing. Yeah, I have that one, but I've been sitting on that one. I want to try to find some other components to go with it. But it would have been nice to have that RCIR complete and unadulterated. I don't remember what the other main was, but there was like a chicken liver pate that was also taken. And the other, yeah, both of the two entree cans are taken out of that, plus that chicken pate. So I don't know if maybe something was done to the outside of the box that these came in that did not tip customs off, that there was food inside, or what. Thanks for dropping in, Germs. Hope to see you another time. Of course, next Sunday I will not be live because I will be at Lake Arcaria. And who knows what we'll be having for dinner when we get everything settled into the cabins. I don't shoot much video. I may shoot a short clip of a campfire but I will shoot a short clip of the memorial bench that has my dad's name on it. So I will post those, but other than that, I really don't do a lot of video shooting. I will take pictures and I post them up on Facebook. I might throw some up on Instagram, and I might throw some up on a community tab. And I'm hoping the fishing this year will be better than last year. It absolutely sucked. Hardly anybody was catching anything big, if any at all. And not just us, it was others who had the cabins next to ours, or others who were going in and out. Or just moving along the bank to try different fishing spots. I caught one little bluegill. Now it's probably about as long as my drinking jar is tall. And I caught that as I was reeling my line in to pack up my rod the last night we were there. And I guess that fish just pounced on it as I was bringing it up because it still had some worm on it. But because we were packing up and it was too small and no one else had caught any keepers, that little fish just went right back into the drink. But Lake Icaria has a decent variety of fish in there. Yeah, there's smallmouth and largemouth bass. There might be some hybrid bass. There's catfish, there's the channel cat, there's the blue cat, there's bullheads. There's the bluegill. You know, there's sunfish, perch, some walleye, and carp. No trout in there. I'm not sure what other species are in that lake. I really haven't bothered to look it up. So I just know those because I've seen them. You know, someone in my group was catching them or seeing them from other people who were there. Okay, thanks for dropping in, Elsie. I'll see you next month. Lake Icaria has a marina with a bait shop next to it, and people who do not have their fishing licenses can go there to the bait shop and buy a 1 day or 3 day fishing license. If, especially if they're coming in from out of state, or if they are Iowans, they can buy a standard fishing license. But I have mine set to automatically renew through an app called Go Outdoors. You know, there's different Go Outdoors versions for your state. But so I have it right there on my phone. I can open that up. And then what I did just to back myself up was I took a screenshot of it so that way if I cannot access the app and someone wants to see my license, I can just pull up that screenshot and there it is. I haven't figured out how to add a hard copy after the fact. I would probably have to call the Department of Natural Resources, find out how much it would cost me to do that. I just don't bother with it, although I probably should. But yeah, there's a swimming area, and then there's a selection of boats at the marina that people can rent, and then other people can store their boats for a monthly fee. Basically like renting a parking garage at an apartment or a condo complex. And last year when my younger nephew and his girlfriend were not able to join us because both of them got the big nasty virus, they made up for it a couple weeks later after they had tested negative. And they rented a pontoon boat, and a very nice one at that. And so we ran around the lake on that for a couple hours or 3. So that was a nice consolation for them and us. So I'm hoping that everybody who is in our family group will be able to go. My brother's up here. He went last year, so of course he got a job. So don't know if he will be able to get the time off for all or part of the time, since he hasn't been there a full year yet, but last year he was there for the whole time. But he's up here because he had a hard time finding work down there, because he had not replaced his truck after an accident that he had that nearly disabled him permanently. But I'm thankful that he was not. But he just can't do the heavy physical work that he used to, so he's working in an auto parts store. But he did not give up his Arkansas land because he eventually wants to go back down there. Plus, that's where he keeps my late dad's bass boat. And I'm hoping that one day maybe we can all go down there and hang out for a while. But because he has not either gotten an Iowa driver's license or has not renewed his Arkansas driver's license, I think he wants to take his time on deciding if he wants to start, driving sooner rather than later. So right now he's either taking the bus or he's getting rides. So he's riding city buses. So he walks a few blocks from the house to a bus stop, then he rides to another location where he can switch to a different route and takes another bus and gets out close to the auto parts store that he's working at. And so right now that's working for him. And so far they have been accommodating of the fact that he may not always have a driver pick him up from work or take him if he has to go outside of the time that the buses run. And because here in Des Moines, city buses don't run on major holidays. So for instance, Labor Day, someone will have to give him a ride or he just doesn't work that day. And that's what's left in that glass. My great niece sometimes is able to hook up with some friend she met through school or some after school group or something like that. Or she has actually gotten to know some of the kids who are there at the lake at the same time we are. In fact, one year, the last night when we were getting ready to pack up our fishing gear, we had worms left, and she gave the last of our worms to some kids who were some night fishing. And she actually showed one of the kids how to put the worm on the hook because one of these boys had not gotten that concept yet. So she enjoys going to the lake. Yeah, we are definitely looking forward to this trip. It's one of the few chances we all get together, get out of the city. Of course, it's nowhere nice as going into the deeper woods and being almost by yourself with just you and the small group you're with, but you know, it's still nice to get out. Being that I don't drive, it's hard for me to get out of the city and go to even one of the county parks because they're not accessible by bus. It'd be nice if they were, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. And plus, the way the traffic is going to be, a big annual bike tour, not necessarily a race because it's more like it's just a big bike tour called Ragbri, or registers annual Great Bike Ride Across Iowa. This is like the 30th no, and I think it was like 50th year of it. It was not held in 2020 because of, well, that big nasty virus that put the squash on everything. But yeah, it started just a couple of registered newspaper employees inviting readers to go ride with them across the state, and they did. And it's pretty much been done ever since. And people from outside of the U.S. come and do this cross-state ride. And the route is different every year, so each year different parts of the state will be hit. And because this is a big anniversary year for it, Ragbri is coming into Des Moines from Ames on Wednesday, and then they will leave Thursday morning to head east. So several thousands, like tens of thousands of riders come. Some form teams, some have support vehicles, some don't. But there are volunteers all along the route to supply any kind of support needed to riders to deal with bike issues, health issues. There's where to begin Homestead. Catching the bottom end of this one. Yeah, in fact, it was mentioned on National Public Radio, their morning news. So their Sunday morning edition news host was talking to a couple of other NPR reporters who have ridden previous ragbris, even the routes are different. And one of them, the woman who the news anchor was talking to, her bike broke down and she had a heck of a time because the brakes were locked on. She couldn't take the brake off. But the host towns along the route where the riders will spend the night, they go all out to make enjoyable evening for all the riders. And so when they are coming here into Des Moines, they will get to do what very few are allowed to do in one of the city parks called Waterworks Park, which is next to our water treatment plant. They will be allowed to camp for the night in the park. Although those who are local will go back to their own homes to sleep, unless they want to camp with the other riders. But there will be a public concert that anyone can go to. So it's going to be a big party on the south side of Des Moines. So, but people from many countries have come to do the ragbi rides every year. Yeah, if I was able to type in the chat without getting on a second device, which would kill my it might kill my connection, so I don't think my Wi-Fi is strong enough to do that, because I tried getting on a Zoom, or not a Zoom, but a StreamYard panel, and my connection just couldn't take it, and so no, I'm never doing that again. But yeah, if it's RAGBRAI is how it's abbreviated, or everybody just calls it ragbri, and it's been said like that ever since it started. But this is a big deal for the different host communities every year. Different organizations will sponsor different aspects of it, or different groups. I have no idea if the concert is going to be streamed, but since I'm not interested in anything like that, I really don't care about that part. But so because the bike traffic will be headed east Thursday morning, we will not have to deal with it when we come back into town Friday afternoon, because after we leave the cabins, we all congregate at one of my sister's houses. Then my sisters and my brother who share a house, that's where we basically put everything together in the vehicles that we're going to take. So we're consolidating as much as we can. And then we Tetris pack the vehicles. I mean, you're literally, it's like playing Tetris. You're fitting different shaped items in to put as much in the limited space as you can. And so when we get back, we basically do the reverse. So anything that I am taking back with me, like any of the food that I take that I have not eaten or that I have not shared with anyone else, if they care to take any of it, or if I'm given some things that others may not want to take back to, like, say my oldest sister doesn't want something or there's not much left, but it's something that I can eat that the others don't want, yeah, I'll end up with it. Or say if we have some toilet paper left, we may give that to my mom so that she can have some extra, just to make sure that she has enough, you know. You know, when toilet paper was such an issue trying to get it in 2020 and 21, my sisters were asking me if I was running out, and I said, nope, I'm stocked up. You know, because I prepare, I didn't have to worry about it. So then, you know, whatever, then one of my sisters will take me and my stuff, bring me back here to my apartment so that I can start unpacking my stuff and putting it away. Yeah, yeah, everyone should be preparing, you know, in case we have to face something like this again, and because of stuff going on around the world, and I'll just leave it at that. Stuff going on right here in the U.S. with like the heat wave out west and down south. Any food crops that are grown down there, if they don't make it, no one can eat it. And now there are wildfires in U.S. state of Washington. So people are having to deal with that kind of thing there, in addition to all the heat. And those wildfires just add to the heat wave. So that smoke may be drifting east, probably into southwest Canada or the northern states. You know, although we haven't had any really bad air days since last Sunday when I went to the baby shower where I picked up that little succulent plant that I have on one of my shelves on my deck. Yeah, that was a bad air day. That's the worst. You know, before on my weather app that I have on this phone that I'm streaming on, it has this air quality. I never really noticed what that was, and then when we started getting all that smoke from the Canadian wildfires, then I dug more into it. So I do check it daily at least once. So it's only been in what, moderate category, which is like the second best above what's called good air quality. Then after that, there's unhealthy for some groups, meaning certain people who may have a higher sensitivity to air pollution. Then there's the unhealthy level, like unhealthy for everyone. And then the very unhealthy. Then there's one more, like hazardous, where it's so bad that you just don't want to go outside to do anything, or you just leave the area completely. If you remember back when people were posting pictures of New York City or other places in that state with orange sky that looked like you were on Mars. Yeah, we've never had it that bad down here, but sometimes the air would, when it's in the unhealthy level, you can smell it, it stinks. But it hasn't been that bad since last Sunday, so I just hope it stays that way. But that's not going to change our plans anywhere. We're still doing this trip, and we're going to make the most of it. And hopefully being by the lake will actually be better than, say, being in the town. Now, outside of the town of Corning is a small town called Carbon, and that was a coal town back in the day. Hence the name. It was called Carbon because the area around there had really serious coal deposits, and there were several active mines. And that was a big employer before either the mines were shut down or that coal was all tapped out. The people from Carbon would go into Corning, and that was a big deal back then, was going into Corning to do their shopping or take care of other business that they couldn't do in the small town of Carbon. And my late dad grew up in that area. In fact, he was born in Carbon. So he had relatives who did work in the mines, I believe. I don't know for certain, but like I said, that was a big employer in those days was, and before my dad was born. And of course, being that it was during World War II, a lot of the coal was probably taken for the war effort at that time because it was needed to provide energy or fuel the furnaces of the metal works to make the big weapons and the vehicles for the military. Yeah, a lot of them don't. A lot of them have either been incorporated into bigger towns or they just completely fizzled. Yeah, we have had that happen here in Iowa where you look at a map from one year and then say like 30 years later you look at another state map and you will see some town names completely gone. And my dad's only sibling was actually the head dietitian of the Corning Hospital until she retired, sold the farm that she still lived on when, you know, after her husband died, she still lived on that farm, but didn't really have it worked. But then when she retired and moved out of state, she sold it and then bought the property where she's at now. But I think that hospital is no longer in existence. I think it closed. Or it's been turned into an outpatient type clinic where no one is kept overnight. I'm not sure. But it's still nice to go back to that area that my late dad called home. And before the Icaria Park had the lake, I'm not sure if it was called Icaria at that time or the lake creation. The county decided to change the name to that of the lake. But yeah, that was my dad's favorite place to go from his youth. So that's why there is a memorial bench out there with his name on it. And that's why we like to go there. For 2025, I don't know if we're going to keep doing that. It all depends on what we decide. We will decide this year what we do in 25. Because we are booked for Lake Icaria for next year. But after that, we will decide what we're going to do, if we're going to go back there again, if we're going to try something different. Of course, it all depends on what is available in the other areas where we may decide to look. Yeah. We kicked around the idea of renting a houseboat on Lake Ouachita down in Arkansas. There are houseboats on Saylorville Lake, which is outside of Des Moines. And you can rent pontoon boats there as well. But Saylorville is nowhere near the size of Lake Ouachita. Yeah, it is a nice family tradition, and because my parents loved Lake Ouachita, when they initially got work down in Arkansas during my senior year of high school, they left Iowa, and then I stayed up here to finish high school up here, and then went down. It made no sense for me to go down there for 1.5 months of school and maybe have to be held back a semester or 4 years just because one class didn't match. So I just stayed up here. And because my sisters are living here, I simply stayed up here in Iowa. Then when it came time for my graduation, my parents and my brother came back up. And then I went down there, and that's when I went to college at University of Central Arkansas. And it was while I was there, I got a chance to go to Mexico for a month. But then I missed Iowa, so after I finished up down there in Arkansas, I just came back up here. But I have been back down there a few times after that. My brother graduated from high school down there because he's 4 years in age behind me. So someone bought me a plane ticket, a one-way plane ticket, and I flew from Des Moines to Little Rock, and then I was picked up in Little Rock. But then after that, I got a ride back up here instead of flying back up here. I do like Arkansas. I do like being out in the wilderness along the lake down there. But the humidity down there during the summer is a bit much. Now, farther south, I know it's worse. So I'll visit, but I'd rather stay here in Iowa. we've had some really hot days here. One time I was in the State Fair parade here, and it was still like 107 Fahrenheit at the time that parade ended. But that was back in I think 91, or maybe it was 90. I think it was 90 at that time. Of course, in 93, we had that big flood that swamped the entire state pretty much. And we had a month without electricity, almost 2 months without potable water. I should have started prepping then, but I'm glad I started prepping when I did. And of course, these two things get added to my stash. This will go into a bag of plastic spoons. I got a bag full of these wet wipes, those Ziploc bags, so they stay fresher longer, because I've carried a few of these type things in my purse, and they just, last time I opened one, it was bone dry. It was dry like just regular paper. So I squirted some hand sanitizer on it so I could use it to clean some sticky fingers. Yeah, it is very, very true. It's a different kind of heat for the same temperature here or in the southeastern states than it is in, say, like Arizona, New Mexico, or Southern California. You know, even you can have differences even within the state of Texas, because there's so many types of climate and terrains in Texas alone. But that is just something we have to deal with. Well, since a few more people are starting to trickle out and I've finished everything here, I'm probably going to go ahead and call this one good. I've gone 3 hours plus some. So I'm going to go ahead and call this one good. I do have that Polish shooter's ration that I bought off of someone on Facebook. I'll rip into that on August 6th. And I will look for some other rations to get a hold of. Plus, I have a few things I can toss together. Not as much of a variety as I would like, but I will try to rectify that as well after I get back. Anyway, I do want to thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. So even if I can't upload any video from there, from the lake, I will definitely upload it when I get back into town on the August 4th. So anyway, thanks all for hanging out with me tonight for my last stream of this month. And catch you on the flip side.